If you're anything like me, you probably didn't watch the most recent Grammy Awards and maybe even forgot that they were happening. It's not something that's been really interesting to me for the past few years because it just kind of seems like a popularity contest. I don't need the Grammys to tell me which albums were the most popular. I can kind of figure that out on my own. But there is still some sort of prestige surrounding the Grammys. Being a Grammy winner definitely still means something. So I wanted to look back at where that came from. Who started the Grammys? Why did they start the Grammys? Who were some of the first winners? And what does it look like? What does it take to win a Grammy these days? So, this is everything you never wanted to know about the Grammys.
What's new?
Even though the Grammys first started in 1958, the roots for it actually stretch back to 1953 when E.M. Stewart came up with an idea to celebrate celebrities, which is something the world clearly needed more of. Stewart was the volunteer president of the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce, and he wanted to, quote, maintain the glory of a community whose name means glamour and excitement in the four corners of the world. So he proposed that they add stars to a stretch of sidewalk with celebrity names and call it the Walk of Fame. The Hollywood Chamber of Commerce then asked some big time industry execs which musicians should be included in this Walk of Fame. Those recording industry executives then decided that there were way too many names and they should be honoring these musicians in a better way that felt kind of more natural to them. So they formed the National Academy of Recording Arts and Sciences to help promote the impact and legacy of major artists and to celebrate accomplishments that these artists were doing or had done. The Oscars, or the Academy Awards, had been going on for decades at that point, starting with a private banquet in 1929, so it was pretty easy for the NARAS, which is what I'm going to be calling it now because I can't be bothered to say that whole organization name every time, came up with a completely original idea to have their own award ceremony and celebrate the achievement of musicians and producers and other industry execs. Paul Weston, who was the president of the LA chapter of the NARAS, said in an interview with the Ocala Star Banner in 1959, "We talked about having our own organization to honor achievements in the recording field. This had been tried half-heartedly before, but never followed through. After a few meetings, we started the Los Angeles chapter, then helped organize one in New York. Now others are being formed in Chicago and Memphis." That same article mentions how some of the top stars of the day, people like Bing Crosby and Doris Day, were already becoming members of the NARAS so that they could be a part of this new award ceremony. So they were already taking nominations and deciding who was going to win each of the 28 categories, but that article that I quoted earlier also highlighted the biggest problem that the ceremony currently had. What are they going to call this thing? Paul Weston asked for people to mail in name suggestions, and he said the winner would receive 25 albums as a thank you for naming the award ceremony. Since they were calling it the Gramophone Awards, they had already decided on the shape of the statue. It was going to be a small gold finished miniature gramophone. And the first version of that statue actually had like a little miniature crank on it that was pretty notorious for falling off. And for those who don't know, the gramophone, which was originally called a phonograph, was a music listening device created by Thomas Edison. And you can think what you want about Thomas Edison. It was created by his company, at least. It revolutionized music, letting people listen to pre-recorded music at home, which was a massive deal. Before that, it was like the radio or live music was kind of all you got. So this idea that you could buy a record and listen to it over and over was novel and incredible. Obviously, after the initial design went through some serious improvements, it became a staple of the industry that kind of changed the way music happened forever. Anyway, they're calling this thing the Gramophone Awards to kind of pay tribute to that. So, Rose J. Elizabeth Dana from Louisiana was one of the many people who submitted the name Grammys. Since the NARAS received her letter first, they gave her the credit for it and sent her the 25 records as an award, and it's been called the Grammys ever since. The first Grammy Awards were held on May 4th, 1959, and it was actually two events hosted at the same time, one in LA and one in New York, with the one in LA hosted by a comedian named Mort Sahl. And one newspaper actually called him the highlight of the event, saying, quote, "Not even a well-advertised salt pours as freely as Mort Sahl." Christine Farnan, who was a key player in getting the event off the ground and would go on to be the Academy's executive vice president, said, quote, "The Grammy Awards were a formal event from the beginning and very much in keeping with the times." She also said that the original event was way more black ties since the celebrities were way more comfortable wearing just like standard tuxes than they are now. If you've seen some of the fashion at the Grammys, you'll know they're a little bit more expressive in what they wear. The event was a pretty big hit right away, with Billboard, which was still called The Billboard at the time, calling it well organized, especially compared to the other events that were happening that year. Other papers were saying it was destined to become just as big as the Academy Awards and the Emmys, and the Los Angeles Mirror called it, quote, a smoothly run operation that impressed everyone who attended. It is something every recording artist, producer, engineer, and musician should join so that future awards will truly reflect the thinking of the whole industry. And according to the Los Angeles Evening Citizen News, about 500 members of the music industry were there, and the Los Angeles Mirror reported that the Recording Academy at that time had 700 members. So these 700 members, I'm sure it wasn't exactly 700, but these roughly 700 members voted for the awards. They were the ones who chose who won a Grammy. And apparently there was like a last minute mess up. I can't figure out what that mess up was, but that meant that it couldn't be televised. And as would become a tradition throughout the years, the first ever Grammy Awards had some controversy with the winners. Frank Sinatra was coming off a truly monster year for his career. Two of his albums hit #1 that year. The nominations back that up. He was nominated, I saw somewhere say 6 times, somewhere else said 11 times. But at the end of the ceremony, he walked away with just one award, not even for his music. It was for cover art on his album Frank Sinatra Sings for Only the Lonely. Instead, Domino Modugno won the top prize, Record of the Year, for his album that I will not try to pronounce. Judging by how I said his name, I would horribly mispronounce that album title. And he also won Song of the Year. And Henry Mancini won for Album of the Year. I did see one article that said, quote, the major objective of the Academy was to keep rock and roll at bay, but I couldn't find where any of the people who set that up said that. I have no idea where they pulled that from. But if you just kind of look at the people who were nominated and the people who won, there's no rock and roll there. So, like, that's a little bit believable, even if I can't really pin down where that came from. There was an R&B category, which was kind of hilariously won by the Champs for their song Tequila. Ella Fitzgerald was one of the artists who won multiple awards for Best Female Vocal Performance and Best Jazz Performance. The Chipmunk song won an award for Best Engineering. Count Basie got a couple of awards, so it was kind of a mixed bag of artists who are legendary and some songs that we'd consider more of like a novelty thing these days. And kind of interestingly, the second Grammys were held in the same year in November of 1959, again on both coasts, where Sinatra did a bit better. He won 2 Grammys that year, actually, for his singing. But so did Bobby Darin, who then told the Santa Maria Times, quote, I hope to pass Frank in everything he's done. And it's safe to say that he did not succeed in that mission. Duke Ellington was the big winner of that second award ceremony, getting 3 awards for his album Anatomy of a Murder. And one of the performances at that ceremony was a ballet with choreography inspired by that album. Meredith Willson, who won a Grammy in the first ceremony, served as the master of ceremonies and was the person who was handing out the awards. Since then, the Grammys have continued to award artists every year. Some of them deserve it, some of them don't. They're still going strong today, but this most recent ceremony had 94 categories, which, if you're keeping track, is more than triple the first ceremony. But that begs the question, with all this controversy about who wins and who doesn't, what does it take to win? What does that process actually look like, and who gets to make that decision? Well, it all starts with the artist or music industry executive submitting work to potentially be nominated. The only people who can submit for Grammy consideration are, quote, registered media companies, and I'm sure if you are that, you know what that means, or members of the Recording Academy. They said that they can receive something like 20,000 entries during just the online entry period. After that, the entries are all vetted by someone in the Recording Academy to determine if they are eligible. They have a group of over 350 experts who go through each submission to make sure they meet the eligibility requirements and are in the proper category and all of that fun stuff. They didn't say who those 350 experts were or what made them experts, but this isn't a judgment call. They're not determining who should be nominated and who should win. They're just making sure that everything is in its proper place and everything is like properly categorized. Then the ballots are sent to all voting members in good standing, which essentially means they've paid their dues, where they will vote on who should be nominated in each category. According to the process listed on recordingacademy.com, to help ensure the quality of the voting, members are directed to vote only in their areas of expertise. They may vote in up to 10 categories across up to 3 genres. Then they send that to an independent accounting firm who tallies up all the votes. Then, once they have the final ballots, they send those back out to the voting members who once again vote for the winner in up to 10 categories, most in their genre and area of expertise, but they are allowed to vote in 4 general categories as well. Then it's sent back to the same independent firm who finds out the winners, and then it's announced on the night. And yes, it is possible to tie, in which case both artists are winners. It's happened 34 times, most often in the more niche and technical categories and not in the major ones. I got a little bit curious and I wanted to find out what it took to actually become a member of the Recording Academy, and it sounds like there's a couple of ways. One is that you can be invited into it. According to the Recording Academy website, quote, "The Recording Academy's membership invitation process is community driven and peer reviewed annually, focusing on two types of membership: voting membership for music creators and professional membership for music business professionals. You also can apply for membership, and that involves having two music industry professionals write you a letter of recommendation, and then they will send you the application process after that. So if any two recording industry professionals want to write me a letter of recommendation, I wouldn't mind being in the Academy and voting for the Grammys." I'm just kidding. I'm not gonna do that. I wouldn't pay the dues anyway. Couldn't find out exactly how many members there currently are in the Academy. Google AI said 13,000, but no idea where they got that, and I do not trust Google AI. But I did see an article that said over half of the members have only been voting members since like 2019. So it sounds like there's pretty consistent turnover. So with all of that long process out of the way and all of that confusing jumbo that you didn't care about, I thought it would be interesting to take a look at some milestones. Where have the Grammys come since 1959? I tried to find who the first ever Grammy Award winner was. Like, someone had to go first, right? There was a ceremony, awards were handed out, someone had to be the first name called, but I couldn't find anywhere that actually made a record of that. So let me know in the comments below if you do know who the first person to ever get a Grammy is. But since then, Beyonce has won the most Grammys of any artist with 35, followed by Sir George Solti, a legendary opera conductor who has 31. U2 has the most Grammys won by a group with 22. JC has the most wins from a rapper with 25, but I'm willing to bet Kendrick is going to pass him because Kendrick already has 22 and doesn't look like he's slowing down anytime soon. Billie Eilish at 18 years old was the youngest winner of both Record of the Year and Album of the Year. Supernatural by Santana is the most awarded album of all time, winning 9 Grammys. Taylor Swift is the artist with the most Album of the Year wins with 4. I am very sorry, I'm about to butcher this name, but I mispronounce things. I'm sorry. Serban Gania is an engineer, and they actually have 5 Album of the Year wins, meaning they have more Album of the Year wins than anyone, including 3 with Taylor Swift. Michael Jackson and Santana both won 8 awards in one night, which is a record. Beyonce and Jay-Z are actually tied for the most Grammy nominations with 88, followed by Paul McCartney with 81. But since a large part of the Grammys is being mad about people who didn't win and who got snubbed, I thought it would be fun to just take a look back at some of the major artists that never won Grammys that you kind of think maybe they would. Despite being nominated 16 times starting in 1993, Snoop Dogg has never won a Grammy. Diana Ross was given a Lifetime Achievement Award but never actually won a Grammy, despite being nominated 13 times since 1964. Tupac also never won a Grammy, even after getting nominated after his death. Famously, ABBA weren't even nominated for a Grammy until 2022, which they did lose. Like Diana Ross, the Beach Boys got a Lifetime Achievement Award but never actually won a Grammy and were only ever nominated 4 times. And this is going to be a theme of artists getting Lifetime Achievement Awards but not actually winning any Grammys. I think that award is more the Grammys, the Recording Academy, realizing we messed up. The Beach Boys should have won a Grammy by now, and then just giving an award for them, because Queen also had 4 nominations with no wins, but 1 Lifetime Achievement Award. And The Who are in that same boat with a Lifetime Achievement Award, but no wins. Only 2 nominations for them, though. Same with Chuck Berry, who was never even nominated, but at least he got that Lifetime Achievement Award. The Grammys apparently really do not like boy bands, with the Backstreet Boys, NSYNC, and One Direction all receiving no Grammys. There are a lot of other artists who aren't necessarily considered as legendary and as influential as Tupac and the Beach Boys and The Who, but were still massively popular for a certain period of time, and it was surprising to me that in that time they never actually won a Grammy. People like Nicki Minaj, Josh Groban, Blake Shelton, Jennifer Lopez, Bjork, Katy Perry, and Dierks Bentley all were like massive in their genres and in their fields for a period of time, and kind of surprising since the Grammys often feels like a popularity contest that they never won anything. So that's the story of the Grammys, where it started, how it's gotten to where it is now, what it takes to win one. If you're interested and want to submit your own music and wonder what that process is like, let me know what you think in the comments below. Let me know your favorite Grammys you ever watched, your favorite Grammys moment, or if you think I'm wrong and you think I actually should pay way more attention to the next Grammys. Let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, consider giving it a like, subscribe if you want to join my journey of learning more about music history.